Thank you for tuning in to this episode of Creative Check-In. I am your host, Mario Trey, and today we're talking with a phenomenal and dynamic creative named Melody Bean Aime. She's a 23-year-old musician, songwriter, and mental health advocate. She wrote the song I Am Rising in response to the George Floyd murder during the COVID-19 pandemic. Look for her creative musicianship on all platforms. The show starts off with a short reading of poetry by Melody and then cuts right into our conversation. Please like, share, and subscribe. Enjoy the show.
Hi, my name is Melody Bianami. My single I Am Rising is coming out August 14th. My life matters and yours does too.
My life, it matters. My life matters to me. My life, it matters. My life matters to me. I never thought I'd live a life like this. I never thought I'd be the type to be missed. Never thought I'd live longer. Never thought I'd grow stronger. Here I am on 2 feet, letting you know you'll never get the best of me. I am rising, I am climbing, I will never be stopped.
The idea of love can only go as far as to conceptualize it. The moment I come close to love, I have the opposite reaction of everything I touch turns to gold, and I wonder why I can't have nice things. I don't take care of them, I was informed. You gave me your heart to hold, and I crushed it like frat boys do soda cans on their foreheads. But this theory of love goes way before college. There was a little girl who dreamt of being loved by the right man. Years of torment made it harder for her to love. So here we are today, where I kneel on 2 knees begging the Lord not to take you away from me. My mistakes, my burdens, I pray they fade away. I pray the Lord gives me the strength for us to fight another day. So what do you say? Am I worth it? I saw Pink the first time I met him. His innocence and joy for life excited me. Kind and humble with light eyes, I was drawn to them like they were only calling for me. And they were. Dazed and aloof, wrapped in love, I guess you would call that the honeymoon phase. We didn't care. The days together felt short, the nights apart felt too long, intertwined still without a care. Life came at us fast, twists and turns we didn't expect, new fears we never knew we'd have to face. Hailstorms and tornadoes threw themselves at us. Love became more complicated. Tensions were high, and yet through the weather event, the sun came out. Stronger than ever, ready for the next storm, a rainbow appeared as colorful as our love.
Really like that, especially the ending paints brought me right into nature, just like sitting on a mountain, looking at a rainbow come across the horizon.
Wonderful.
So yeah, that's awesome. Can you speak to what was some of the inspiration behind those two spoken word pieces?
Yeah, so the first one, I think is just a testament to the fact that we all make mistakes, that none of us are perfect, that, we have this, I guess you could say, like, bubblegum idea of love that, will always be pretty and pink, and tasty and, delightful, but that's not always the case. And that, love can hurt, love can be less than ideal. and and I think that I was just speaking to the fact that I made a mistake and that I was still looking for redemption. I made a mistake, but I wasn't ready to let go of what was, and just trying to make sure that I could still secure the future, even in acknowledging my mistakes, or I guess by acknowledging my mistake.
Hmm. Yeah, and the mistakes sort of like, well, I think over time you realize as you mature more and more how the mistakes are actually, you know, you're grateful for the mistakes almost because it helps the mistakes actually help you find like who you really are basically. um, so I think about that. This is just a reflection that I'm having this week actually, about what you said, how things don't need to be packaged and look beautiful or perfect. That's what I'm actually having as part of my own journey right now. I think is overcoming this need to be perceived a certain way. and the way that we sort of need to be perceived as this idea of perfection, basically, in the eyes of our parents, our friends, our family. Um, and so meanwhile, I have this idea, or we all have this idea of perfection that society would certainly honor if we met all of these different checks. But then you realize that that is not who you are at your core, or at least whoever you are at your core is not being expressed through what you're trying to live up to. So for me, actually, this week, I don't know what it's been exactly, but I find myself being freed. Well, I do know partly why, but I find myself being freed from those shackles more and more as I embrace what I previously perceived as like darkness, or as I embrace or have experiences with aspects of my life that I was shameful of. I actually so many blockages get cleared from that process. So I don't know. Can you relate at all to that as well?
Yeah. And so as you were speaking, I was thinking about this and trying to figure out if it necessarily directly correlated, but what you said reminded me of, at least when I was younger, I used to always wear a mask. I never was fully honest with anyone around me. I always put on this persona, this happy face, what have you, of just trying to get by, trying to make people like me, trying to, just not have to deal with what I was actually going through. And it was definitely like a coping mechanism, but a definitely negative one, not one that helps anything really at the end of the day. And so I just have, since childhood, been going through this transition of just being myself, coming into myself, owning myself, being open and honest with myself as well as with those around me. Because I feel like, yes, the journey starts from within, but once you start to externalize yourself, then others around you can really relate to you, or, help you with anything, or things like that, that just don't happen when you're not your true self,
Right.
and like you're saying, it's a cleansing process. And that when you are really yourself, then, your opportunities come, but like-minded people come, and that's kind of at least what I was going through growing up and to today. So
Right. And it's just like that once you kind of realize that you're wearing a mask, it honestly is a little awkward moving forward because you still, you living in this construct, you still are used to the mask,
yeah.
and it requires a little bit of a different shedding, a different programming to sort of to come into yourself and to really be appreciative of that self and allow that self to really just come through without any filter or holding back. And so sometimes, like for me, I don't think I realized the extent of my mask until like, when I turned 30. And I'm like 30 something or something right now. But that's a long time to go in life without realizing that you're not really being your authentic self. So now I've been in that journey where I'm pursuing that, but I think we still have to, it's always a life's work to discover deeper levels to yourself, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But what do you use, or what advice do you have for like getting past sort of that awkward state of realizing that you've not been authentic, and even sometimes the shame, that comes with that revelation? How do you move forward past that? How do you really determine what the true self even is from there? Like, what's been helpful for you to know that like this is true versus not?
So that's a great question. So
I mean, that's a loaded question.
it is, but it's a great question. So just from my experience, I would say that it is hard and it is shameful when you're to yourself and to those around you. You know, my family was kind of like aware that I was wearing a mask, but you know, they didn't know who the real me was to even say that you're not being you right now. You know what I mean? So to some extent, they were like, oh, this is Ariane or Melody. You know what I mean? Being who she is. But then at the same time, they were kind of like, well, we don't really know who that is because we feel like we're only getting parts of the story. You know what I mean? So then when you do come into yourself and you do come into your own with yourself, you know, without even addressing the external those around you, you know, when you're just coming to truth with your coming to grips with yourself, for me, what helped me best was honestly therapy first and foremost, talk therapy at least to begin with, and then honestly just reflecting on who I was and what I did that I didn't like, to be able to say, okay, this is now what I would like to be like and how I would like to act and treat myself and others. And so that process, I'm still in it, but took a long time to even start, and is now, you know, a daily practice of making sure that I'm honest with myself first and foremost, and then to those around me as well. But I think it also is a process of acknowledging who is around you that you feel comfortable with, because I feel like you can't, like, once I got into this openness of, you know, my bipolar disorder, depression, you know, various aspects of my life that were once shameful and hidden, you know, it became what's the word I'm looking for? It became kind of hard to determine who I could share with, you know, because yes, it was still shameful at a time period, but now I'm on this other side, you know, working to be on the other side of this honesty train, you know, and it's pulling into the station. It's kind of like, well, what passengers can get on? You know what I mean? And you're kind of like, well, yes, I'm open and honest, but it's like, are they going to judge me? You know what I mean? So I'm honest with myself now. Now I'm getting to the point of other people. So now I'm honest with myself. I own my truth with myself. And now it's kind of trying to figure out the level that people get, because, you know, let's be real, 100%, everybody doesn't get 100%. Everybody doesn't get 100%, and everybody shouldn't get 100%, maybe, you know what I mean, depending on who's in your circle and who's in your life. So so that was something that I had to learn, and filter through friends, filter through, you know, relationships and things like that, just trying to get the core group of people that really care about me, really understand me, and that I feel comfortable with, and that hopefully, you know, I'd like to think they feel comfortable with me as well. So that was a loaded answer for your loaded question.
Yes, thank you. That was a loaded answer. That was a rich answer with a lot of wisdom. I mean, you are much younger than myself, and I have to say you've integrated these experiences into your life's work already, by, you know, transmuting your experiences, your journey into creative expression, your music, you're a songwriter, which I just think is amazing. So can you talk about like how songwriting specifically has been an aid to your journey to overcoming some of the issues you brought up pertaining to mental health?
Yes, so it all started out with poetry. You know, I've been writing poetry for about 10 years now. It started off soothing me, if that makes any sense. You know, I would write it to feel better. You know, I hadn't really acknowledged that I had depression at first. You know, I just felt sad. I just felt like I had no one to talk to about it, because I was like, oh, nobody else feels this way. You know, how you just, you know, just internalize everything. And so as a 13-year-old, you know, I was just kind of like, this is life. You know, people are just sad, but they don't talk about it. You know, so I kind of, as I got older, I realized people are sad, but they don't talk about it. It's not as open, you know, and there's not as much dialogue. And so I wrote, and wrote and wrote and wrote. And so there got to a point where it became easier for me to share, because I was so overcome with emotions. And now I realize that that is part of my bipolar disorder. But at the time, you know, we didn't have a diagnosis. We weren't working with a diagnosis, but I just knew as I was younger, I knew that I felt so much more than, or I felt so much more than other people. And so I had to get it out. I just had to get it out. And so pre-therapy, you know, I was doing poetry. And so now over the years, you know, it's turned into songwriting, it's turned into music, it's turned into rap, you know. But I always look at myself as a poet first. I feel like I'm still working on the singer, songwriter, rapper element, which I have grown to love and appreciate as well, because it is so different than poetry. To me, poetry is like, I want it to be concise, you know, I want it to fit into a box, in a sense of like, you know, not necessarily like stanzas and things like that, but just sort of brief sentences, you know, things that just go together, I guess, in a sense. But in songwriting, I feel like there's so much more freedom, you know, and I even look forward to playing around with the order of songs, the song structure, if you will. You know, it's usually verse, chorus, verse, bridge, chorus, whatever, you know. And I look forward to playing with that as a poet, um because there are rules in music and there are rules in poetry, but you know, what fun is that if you just stick to that all the time? You know, it's so predictable. So I really look forward to playing with that. But sorry, as regarding songs with my mental health, you know, I have some unreleased music that I'm very excited to, you know, release, that really talk about my journey with mental health, as well as relationships that have uh crumbled, if you will, and that affected my mental health. So getting that out, that release, was so cathartic for me, you know, just that whole process of being able to just take whatever was in my mind and write about it. And then for me, my process is usually I like to have a beat or a piece of music in mind before I write to it. But sometimes, you know, the writing just comes first and I just have to get it out and release and everything like that. And then I find the beat to it later. But yeah, that's typically the process, and that's really how I've seen it help me. It's just been such a great release. And you know, I know it has been so helpful for me, and so I feel like, you know, this would have helped my 13-year-old self, you know, just knowing, okay, I'm not alone, and here are the other people that feel that way, that are going through similar things, you know. So that's all I can do, is hope that, you know, other people feel the same, or other people will feel acknowledged, you know, that I feel the same, you know, that there are other people besides me that feel like them. um, so yeah.
Yeah. No, definitely. I think I certainly am working with you. I can relate to your work and the song and all of that. And just for the audience, so that they're aware, you have a single that's being released titled "I Am Rising." It releases August 14th. People can check out your website, melodybeiname.com. We'll have the link on the subtitle of this video, I'm sure. Um, but and it was just interesting, like, you know, I think all of us, one of the reasons I relate to that song so much is as I mentioned to you, I'm all about this theme of rising, you know, rising from the ashes, especially after you know, not really journeying into my true self until much later in life. I felt like it was a lot of ashes, and so there was a lot to rise from. So I relate to the title "I Am Rising" so much, and I think that a lot of people, especially Black people, right now, you know, in many ways, we're experiencing like a creative renaissance in some ways amongst our people, especially. So I just think it's really fitting. And there's a quote that you made mention that I just want to read. You said, "Overwhelmed with emotions of current events, I wrote this piece with a heavy heart, but with hope for the future. My life matters and yours does too." And so I know that you wrote this in the era of COVID-19, Black Lives Matter, and so much else. Can you speak to how COVID-19 and everything that we're going through now has impacted your creativity in general?
So I was so blessed. I know a lot of other people were too, but I know a lot of people did not fall in this category of being able to shelter in place and have all that they needed. You know what I mean? And so I was so blessed to say, you know, I live with my parents, you know, I'm safe, I'm taken care of. Nobody that we, you know, in my immediate family was sick, or is sick to this day. And so I was able to create. I was able to tap into my feelings. I was able to figure out emotions that I hadn't previously dealt with. You know, I was able to put my mind to work. And so with that being said, I was able to create what will be coming out as an EP. I was able to create I Am Rising. And so my creative process through COVID was working with the singing songwriter, producer Simone Jones, world-renowned musician, and she was fostering my musical pursuits. And so I was able to work with her basically daily for 3 months straight. And it was such an enlightening process, because I fell in love with meditation. I fell in love with writing music, because previously to this apprenticeship, if you will, with Simone, I was simply writing. I shouldn't say simply, but I was writing poetry. So songwriting came later, rapping came later, and I just can't emphasize how blessed I am. I can't stress enough how, and I acknowledge that. I acknowledge the struggles of so many people that their grocery stores were completely sold out, or they didn't have money to go because they weren't working, because this was pre-stimulus check, or they were laid off because their job is only could only service so many employees at one time, or now they've gone to I know a lot of restaurants are doing this, they're cutting out like wait staff, you know what I mean? And they're only doing takeout, or, just so many people have all these different stories. And I Am Rising came through a COVID era, came through a post George Floyd murder, came through, a new world that we're living in now. And I'm Rising is hopefully an inspiring piece that encouraged people to move forward through the midst of what seemed like darkness. And I'm just so thankful that I was able to find light, at the end of the tunnel, but continuously finding light. It doesn't just stop there. So
Yes.
Yeah.
And we are glad that you found the light as well at the end of the tunnel, and that you're rising, because that is important. So I want to thank Melody so much for a wonderful, insightful conversation. Stay tuned for more episodes on creativecheckin.com.
My name is Melody Bien-Ami, and oh man, I already messed up. I couldn't decide if I was going to say I have a single. Okay. Hi, my name is Melody Bien-Ami. My life matters and yours does too.
Perfect. Okay. Yeah, I wanted to take a few seconds.
I know. I was like.
But then you were like. No, that's funny. What's up? This is Mario Trey with Creative Check-In. Creative Check-In is a service where we're just all about elevating your project to success. I help you develop your skills to implement your project. We will come up with a mind map to unblock our creativity so that you are with high sky momentum. And then lastly, we network with people who can get you a little bit further in the process with your creative project. Getting it out, it's like when you build it, will they come? No, they will not come necessarily. You have to promote yourself to get people invested in your product, to get them moving, to get them interested, to get them hooked. And so that's what we're going to be talking about in this program.